If you struggle on pressured lakes, this is the forgotten finesse rig you need to throw. Jesse Wiggins has made a pile of money with it, and today he's giving up the whole system, why it works, how to fish it, and the tiny adjustments that catch bass when others don't.
All right, Jesse Wiggins, welcome in this morning. Uh, Man, excited to have you on. Over the last few years, you have 4 tour-level wins. Just a couple years ago, a big win on Lake of the Ozarks, and you're known as one of the more consistent pros on tour. I totaled it up looking at this. Over the last 4 years, you have 9 top 10s and made $475,000 plus on the Bass Pro Tour. So that's pretty consistent. And I think a big part of that is, your Lake of the Ozarks win was on the shaky head. And I'm sure a lot of those checks you've cashed have been on it. So excited to talk to you about it. And I know it's in the peak of deer season and good fishing season. So thanks for taking time coming in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, and looking forward to that. You're right. A shaky head, and that's the reason I'm sitting here talking to you right now. It's the reason I got to fish professionally. And yeah, it's near and dear to my heart for sure. And so, yeah, I mean, anytime anybody wants to talk about it, I feel like it's something I can talk about with confidence, and I really, know what I'm talking about. But so, yeah, anytime I can, I'm willing to. And but yeah, thanks for having me on, and looking forward to it.
Yeah. So I'm just maybe 1 or 2 years older than you. And I can remember back in the day, man, the shaky head, all of a sudden, the jig head worm, all that stuff's been around for a while. But man, it was on the FLW tour, it was the co-angler hammer. When you saw him pull that out behind you, it's like, oh God, here it comes. And then all of a sudden, guys in the front of the boat decided, well, yeah, this works pretty good. I'm going to throw it. And it kind of took over. And then the last few years, all of a sudden, the Ned rig came along, the drop shot, the Nico, the wacky rig. I mean, all these other cooler things, and the shaky head kind of went away. So, and obviously you're doing pretty well with it, and I'm sure you're not too upset to see nobody else, or not many guys throwing it. So, in your mind, why do you think the shaky head is still such a good player, and why have you not transitioned to some of those a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I have, I was just thinking earlier about it, and I definitely still have it tied on every tournament, try to figure out a way to catch them with it, obviously. But in the last few years, forward facing sonar has got so dominant, it's kind of just took a back seat to the minnow and that kind of stuff. It really has jerk bait. And it was never, obviously you get some bites on it, you get a lot of bites certain times of the year, but it's like any other bait. Like, you're not going to just go out and get 100 bites on it. So you ended up having to do the forward facing sonar thing, drop shot. And then for smallmouth, it's always been a drop shot or Ned rig. I've tried the shaky head thing up north, and it's just not as effective as a drop shot or a Ned. It just isn't. I've tried it. It's too slow sinking. Like, it's not a really great forward facing bait. It really isn't. It takes too much time. And by the time it hits the bottom, you're already scanning to another fish you want to throw a minnow. Like, it just takes too much time. But now that we're getting back to normal of less forward facing sonar, and I was just thinking about this even before you called me for this interview, that I feel like it's going to be back being a bigger player for me because we can slow down, and you're not scanning for the next fish because we only get to use it 3 hours a day. So I'm looking forward to that. And but yeah, I mean, I never really have quit throwing it. It just the lakes we've been to. I mean, obviously I've tried, but it just with the forward facing now, it just kind of took a back seat. But like I said, now we're back to a little bit normal, so I'm looking forward to it, and just seeing where it goes now that we're only using it 3 hours. So, but yeah, it's always been a fish catcher, like you said. Co-anglers use it, and that's kind of like the reason I'm throwing. Just a little backstory of my history with it. I think my dad put it on our spinning poles when we started fishing, 3 or 4, just so he didn't have to fix a bait every 2 seconds. Cause you rig it up and you're good until you get bit or hang off or hang up, And, so he just put it on there and said, it's easy to rig, easy to tie on, no weights, no beads, no hooks. It's just one rig. And he shows how to do the worm. It was kind of like skinning a deer. He's like, I'm going to show you how to skin it one time, and then it's on your own. So it's the same way with rigging and tying on. He's like, I'm tying it on, and you're good from then on. So I remember tying on, and, from being 5 years old, and we was already tying on our own stuff. So, because, I mean, he was fishing, and, we was out there to fish. We went out there to learn how to tie on. It was just fun. I just got to thinking about that. But it's so simple. And that's what I tell people. It's so simple. You just don't think will catch big ones, and man, it couldn't be farther. I've caught giants on it I've caught 8-pounders in Florida on it. I've caught, 6-pounders up north with it, like largemouth. So, man, it's just an all around bait. And like a lot of times we would pick it up down here on Smith, and we would catch the biggest fish on it. And it is a shaky head lake. Smith Lake is, no doubt. You can throw a drop shot to your blue in the face, but it just will not get those bigger ones. For some reason here, they want to, bite something on the bottom. And that, I guess we kind of got lucky that was the dominant bait here. And that's what I tell people, like, find a lure you're extremely confident with. Now, like I said, with forward facing, that kind of deals kind of went away, but man, we got so much confidence in it here, growing up with it. And like, I'd never been to any other lakes. I started fishing the opens because they were coming to Smith, and I'd never been to any other lakes, but I was like, well, they buy this on here, and everybody talks about Smith being so tough. So I'm like, well, why not just throw what they bite on Smith on other lakes? And I found out that really works because they don't just bite everything down here like they do. So if they bite it here, I'm pretty confident I can take it to other places and catch them. So that's what I started doing with it. And that's how I kind of started off my career, won some tournaments with it. And like I said, it's still part of the arsenal, no doubt. Now, sometimes I get mad, sorry just to ramble, but I get mad that I feel like I know too much now instead of just going to a brush pile and throwing a shaky head or one pocket all day or a row of docks. Like, if I could just go back to that, not knowing anything else, like, I feel like I could do good in some of these tournaments, just not thinking about everything else. And that's like, how it is when you first start. You don't know but 2 or 3 little techniques, and that's what you go and do, and you have success. Well, then you get to become a pro, and you know all these different things. And man, and it does. It weighs on you, knowing like, man, I could go crank, or I could go throw a jerk bait, or I could. But if you stick to one thing, and you know that from, you see guys do really well with the same thing. Every tournament they're in the top 10 before forward facing. You'd see them in the top 10 and they're doing the same thing. And that's just the way it works like that. So that's what I tell people, either dominate on one lake and learn, or dominate with a technique, and you can make something out of it. So that's kind of that's my story with a shaky head, from the outside looking in, I guess you could say.
And the other thing, recently I've heard a number of different people say that they like other techniques because, well, they can't skip a shaky head very well, can't put it in places. And if I was a defense lawyer, I would exhibit A would be you casting it around docks. You can get that thing way back in there. So,
Yeah.
that's a myth, right?
Oh, 100%. You definitely got to change your setups, and that's something we can talk about too is, you don't want to put a long 7-inch worm on a 3/8 ounce shaky head and try to skip it, obviously. But if you're around docks, you downsize that shaky head to about an 1/8 ounce or even a little less. And then you put a worm on there about 4 or 5 inches, whether it be a Cinco or something that's got some thickness to it. And I can put that baby anywhere you want it, with a spinning rod and that little setup. And man, it gets bites. So you imagine the people that go down through there with a jig or whatever, you're going to pick up a couple more fish, being able to get it up in there or something, if they want something finesse. So yeah, the casting aspect of it that's a total myth. It's just like anything. You got to change your setup to get the result you need.
Yep. Well, speaking of baits, let's dive into that because before we get talking about specifics of how to fish it and where and all that, and start with the jig head because, you could start a Ford versus Chevy debate, I think, amongst a lot of guys between the 90-degree line tie or 60 or whatever, the horizontal versus vertical and, length of hook, all that stuff. So kind of run through your basic setup on your hook, your worm, and what you like with the keeper too.
Yeah. It's kind of just through trial and error. We figured it out. We built our own, and actually, I'm looking into getting somebody to build us one, so we don't have to build them anymore. But every time somebody comes out with one, I check it out, and it's never right. So, or it's never up to my standards of what I think it needs to be. We use a 60-degree line tie. And, maybe it's a 70. It ain't a 90. Don't get me wrong, a 90 is going to get more bites, I believe. But man, when you have to fish it around rock and brush, it just hangs up so much more than a 60-degree does. Like, we've tried it, trust me, and they bite it. Don't get me wrong. If you're getting them for free and you can break it off every cast, it's one thing to throw a 90, but we bend it out to about a 60, maybe 70. So it ain't really 60. It's in between a 90 and a 60. But our mold is we just kind of just figured out how to build it to be, a little bit more than 60, I would say. and definitely a vertical line tie as far as, with the head, not the flat eye. And the flat eye we always got hung with it a lot too, because like on Smith, it's solid rock pretty much when you're throwing it. So you just got to have something that'll come through it and, not hanging up every other cast. And we feel like that vertical 60 degree has been the key down here. And that's kind of where we took and we built it like that. And the hook wise, I always like a longer shank hook. No matter if I'm throwing an 1/8 ounce or even up to, a 3/8 or whatever it may be. A lot of times we put a trick worm on it, or even a 5-inch Cinco or 5-inch style, 5-inch, stick bait or whatever it may be. And so I always like the longer shank. A lot of times, when it prevails, when it is the best is when they're spawning. And I feel like that longer shank, I mean, you might get one or two more throughout the day that's picking it up, by the end of it or something like that. So we just got to where we make them all with the longer shank. And it's not like it's really, really long. It's like it's a 5/0 medium wire hook. So it's not crazy long, and it fits, you can bite your trick worm or flick shake, whatever, down to 4 inches, and it's not too big for the worm. And but that's kind of the head. It's homemade. Like I said, it's homemade. And I'm begging people. I got to get it made, mass produced. I feel like I could already made a lot of money off of it if I would have. But it's also been a little bit of a secret too. Our perfect head, because that's all I get from guys is, even pros be like, man, I lose them on a shaky head. I just lose them. They bite. I just lose them. And I mean, with the way our setup is, we don't lose them. I mean, now you might miss a few or whatever, and you might lose one every now and then if something crazy happens. But I mean, I'm going to say 98% of the time, if there's no, if you're not hung up, if everything's just normal and he's not hung up and he bites it and he's got it in his mouth, I'm catching him. The way our setup is. But we beef up. Like I said, we got that medium wire hook. It's not a lot wire. We got, and we use a 12-pound test. I mean, even clear water, I hardly ever throw a shaky head on less than 12. And the only time I would be like if I went to like a slider head type thing, and like we don't even make them. I just buy some and have some in my box, and I'll definitely throw like a slider on like 8 or something. But that's more of, before forward facing, and when they would be suspended and you want it to spiral and slide real slow, we would use that slider, and it gets bet really good when it's tough in the fall, whatever. But I might use 8 with that because it's in the open and I'm not around brush or whatever. But I would usually have 2 or 3 rigged up. I would have that 8 like for open water. If I got to a brush pile or a dock, I'm picking up my 12-pound test. And we'd use, 20-pound main line braid, and 12-pound leader, and a medium heavy rod, 7-1 medium heavy spinning rod.
Okay.
Even up to a 7-3 medium heavy. I mean, pretty much a jig rod, but it's a spinning rod. It's got spinning rod eyes on it. And just give them the gas when they bite it. You got that big setup, and when you feel them, you know how shaky head bite is. You don't feel them bite it. You just feel the weight. Give them the gas just like a jig, because it is a jig. It's just don't have a skirt on it. That's how we look at it. And so why would you want to go into it with less of a setup? If it's a jig. I mean, it's the same hook, it's the same head. So just beef it up, and that's what I tell people when they, I was like, just give them the gas and beef your rod up, and you're not going to lose them. I mean, it's just like a jig. You don't lose them on a jig. So, and but it's because you set the hook hard, and you got bigger line, and so that kind of thing. So, but yeah, beef your setup and give them the gas, and I promise you won't lose them.
And then are you clamping down your drag max, and then is it a slack line hook, or are you kind of reel until it's tight, then a pull set?
Yes, it's man, it would be just like a jig. So as soon as you feel the bite, reel down, set the hook, like real straight up. I'm not slacklining, obviously. I mean, you can, if I've got 20-pound test on there, I wouldn't be scared to slackline. But and in some situations, we'll put 15 or 17 if we're around a bunch of brush and muddy, whatever. But most of the time, the 12-pound, you feel them bite it, just reel down, get your slack out, and just give them the gas. Now, I will have my drag backed off a little bit on my spinning rod, but it's just so it'll just barely slip when I set the hook. It ain't like zzz, the whole way up. It's just like a zzz, and I got him, and then it's tight, and then when I know I got him hooked, then I'll back the drag, just like a drop shot kind of thing, just back it off, and then if he wants to pull by the boat or whatever, he can. But most of the time, it's just a zzz, you definitely hear the drag, but it's nothing like crazy loose. It's definitely tightened down.
And then, man, with keepers on it, like you said, that was always a frustrating thing. You get the bite and you get it, and some of them guys would glue it up there, or they would have like a little screw in style, and some of those would never release it, and then it seemed like you missed them because it wouldn't release, and then other ones seemed like it would always be sliding down. It wouldn't hold it up there, and then you're skipping it, and some are on the head and some are on the shaft. What do you like for a keeper?
Yeah, so it's like a jig collar keeper, but it has like a obviously don't have the jig head don't have the weed yard hole or anything like that, but it's like the single is made out of the lead keeper that it's just a loaded point. You got the collar, which would be where the jig skirt would go, but then you have it comes down and it has the little just a lead keeper that's a little pointed up. And like sometimes in the mold, like it'll come out a little rounded, and I'll just take some pliers, and just kind of make it a little pointy where the worm will stay up. But most of the time, I mean, it's most of the time they come out good, but it's just got just a little bit of a keeper on it. And like I said, if it gets wore down, or if I don't feel like if it's not sharp enough when it comes out, I'll just bend on it with some needle nose, and it's just always have the collar. I want my worm slid up on the collar. I don't want the screw lock. I feel like the screw lock, I mean, they'll bite it. Don't get me wrong. They're still going to bite it. It's a worm on the bottom a lot of times. They're going to bite it. But with that, sliding that hook up onto the collar, it makes that S in the hook or in the worm when you slide it up and then you hook your hook into the worm. It's got that S shape. And that's what makes that jig head spiral. You can see it on forward facing. You can see your bait just doing this as it's sinking. It's pretty cool. And you know that, and a lot of times when you pick up, he's already got it. So they followed it down. So that's why I always go with the collar and not the screw lock. I feel like you're better off with just the collar. And like I said, and like you talking about, if your worm keeps sliding down, especially if you're skipping docks with it, just take a pair of pliers, bend your little, or like mold your lead keeper, and make it pointy, little bit, just something where the worm can slide up over, and you're good to go. And obviously, you go through several worms, but it'll definitely keep it up there when you do that.
Yeah,
I don't glue it or anything like that.
Yeah, that's a good
If I end up feel like I'm needing glue, like I said, I'll just mold it with some pliers and bend it and make it a little pointy so it slides up on it and keeps it on there.
Yeah, I've never heard anybody say that. That makes sense though, to make your own, or just adjust the keeper a little more if it's.
Yeah, just you can take those needle nose and just pinch the lead, and it'll make a little pointed, hook barb, I guess you could say, like a little barb, and slide your worm up on there, and you're good to go.
Yep. Then what about your the actual bait yourself? I'm assuming you're using a straight tail worm most of the time.
Yep, I'd say 80% of the time it's some kind of straight tail worm, whether it be a stick bait or like in a tournament, I'm using either a 5/8 or a 6/8 flick shake. But the worms ain't made for really a shaky head. The jackal, you know how soft the plastic is. It just, in a tournament, in practice, I'm using either some kind of trick worm or stick bait, just hard plastic, so it ain't re-rigging every other fish. But a flick shake is 100% the best worm I put on there. It gets bit really, really good putting that, and it's already got the tail that's kind of got the little crook in it. And it's made for wacky worm style, no doubt. But I started putting it on there, and they bite it. That's what I won the tournament on Ozark on. And I'll just take the 6/8 if I want like a 5-inch Cinco style. I'll take that 6/8, and it's just round like a Cinco, and I'll just bite it down to 5 inches, and you can skip it and do everything you want to do with it. So, but that's what I use in the tournament. But like a Zoom trick worm gets bit on it. If you just had to go to this gas station and get some worms, that worm's going to get bit on a shaky head, 1,000%. So, in practice, that's usually what I use is some kind of trick worm or Cinco. And I don't know a Cinco style bait that's better than the other on a shaky head. You just want that profile, the little thicker profile. That's all you really want when you're putting a Cinco. And the only time I'd put a Cinco is like at Ozarks when the water's a little dingy and there's a million bass. Like I would use a trick worm and I would literally be setting the hook every cast. Like there's that many fish, like they're little, like not keepers. So I just beefed up my worm size and I still call it pile of little ones, but I definitely got rid of some of those 10 inchers that was biting at every other cast. And I always use some kind of Cinco when it's dingy or shallow, really shallow, or a lot of largemouth, that kind of thing. I'll use some kind of Cinco style bait, or like I said, bite the 6/8 flick shake down to 4 or 5 inches.
And do you ever go with like a creature or a craw or anything like that? Or
Yeah, I mean, I will rig one up like a brush hog. We throw brush, like in brush, shallow brush, some pitching it around. But usually, if I'm gonna some kind of creature, if it's that shallow, I'll just rig up a Texas rig and peg it, and you're good. Um, Now out here, like on Smith, we'll throw a brush hog deeper in brush in the summertime, and we'll put it on a shaky head for sure. And but most of the time, if I'm gonna flip, I'll just use a bait catcher with a pegged weight because it's so shallow. You're not really getting any more action. It's not falling a long ways or nothing. So I feel like you can get it done with a Texas rig brush hog for shallow stuff.
gotcha. And then weight, like what's your starter kind of if you just had
Yes,
it? What's your
if I
starter
could,
and when do you go up and down
if
on
I
it?
could only use one, I would use a 3/16. That's what I have the most of. I mean, I have a, and then, but if I'm skipping docks, I'll go to eighth. I usually look at it. If I know I'm gonna be fishing 5 foot or less, I'll throw the eighth the whole time. You get out 6, 8, 10. That eighth just takes forever to hit the bottom. I mean, they'll bite it. Don't get me wrong. It ain't like they're not going to bite it, but I feel like you can throw a 3/16 and do the same thing. You just cover a little bit more water. But like I said, 3/16 from 6 foot to 20 foot, and then 20 and more. Like I have caught some like Lake Hartwell. Sometimes down here, catching them 35 on the bottom. I'll go to a quarter, or if I've got a 3/8, I'll try 3/8 too. But most of the time a quarter is as big as I go. But every one of them has the same hook in it. The 1/8 ounce has the same hook. The quarter has the same hook. The 3/16, so every one of them's got the same hook. And but we just pour a few in different weights. But I've got to where I throw that 1/8 ounce a ton shallow, just skipping it around. It's so easy to skip, and you can put it anywhere, quiet. And I'll pitch it around a ton. But down here it's mostly 3/16, or if I'm fishing, most time there's fishing 15 foot, 15 foot, I'll do the 3/16. So 3/16 and eighth is my two favorite ones for sure. But I always keep a few quarters in there for certain times. And but yeah, and then also while we're just talking about it, we also pour one for like Tennessee River stuff, like Magnum trick worms and that kind of thing. And it's just like a 5/0 jig hook in it, long shank, and we'll put up to like a 3/8 or whatever, and it gets them too. Like I caught a bunch on it, Kentucky Lake, Gunnersville the last few years in our tournaments. So, um, and that's when we even 7/3. A lot of people throw it on a bait caster when you get that big, and which is totally fine because it's more like a profile thing out there on the river ledges. It ain't a fall or nothing like that. So you just want that bigger profile, and a lot of times we'll just put it on a bait caster because you just want it to hit the shell, make some racket, just that long worm profile that they bite on those lakes. So, but we do build the same hook. It's the same style. It's just a lot bigger hook and a bigger weight. So we'll use that one as well up there.
Yeah, pretty versatile. And then color on worms, are you any color as long as it's green pumpkin, or you
Any
like
color as long as it's green pumpkin. That's about the way I say it. It can have any color flake in it, but as long as it ends with green pumpkin or starts with green pumpkin, it tends to be pretty good. Besides, I have found, I say this all the time, Ross Barnett and Mississippi. I threw a green pumpkin for a while. I never had a bite. And it was like the last hour of the tournament. I'm like, well, I'll try this June bug. And I put on June bug and I caught like 3 in the last 10 minutes. And I had just turned around and went back to where I just went through with green pumpkin. And I was like, dang, I was kind of pissed off that happened because now I got to carry freaking June bug with me. Like, but it 100% in my mind, it mattered that June bug was the deal. So I would say I always keep June bug in there too for some of like Florida or like if we go over there or something. But it's either June bug or some kind of green pumpkin, whether it be blue, green, red, whatever. But definitely green pumpkin is, I mean, I would say 99% of the time, besides Ross Barnett, I'm throwing green pumpkin something.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, takes the guesswork out of it. And then
Yep.
last detail before we get into fishing it, what about leader? You like a really long leader, short leader, and are you a FG guy, or what's your
Yeah,
go-to?
I do FG when I'm rigging up. A lot of times in the tournament, I'll just do Albright or whatever it's called, just a lot quicker. But with our setup, it's a little bit bigger, fluorocarbon. That FG is just the best for coming through the eyes, the easiest. You get to time that Albright with 12 and 15 pound, it gets a little big and don't like coming through the eyes or it gets caught in your reel. So if I definitely like the FG the best. Like it's 100, and I just usually go, 8 or 10 foot, probably 10 foot usually. Like I don't usually go much further than 10
Okay.
because it's kind of like it, the just the way I look at it. The hook is hooked on the hook keeper by the reel at the reel seat, and my knot is just maybe barely in the spool or something. So 10, 11 foot is usually plenty, and like I'll just use it till it gets down to about 7 or 8 foot, and then I'll redo it. Usually, if you use that much of it, your line's been abused, so you need to go ahead and redo the whole thing. And if I'm going to redo the whole thing, I don't want to waste a bunch of fluorocarbon that I haven't used. But if you're breaking off, you already need to replace that leader, in my opinion, anyways. If you've already broke it down to 5 foot, so I usually start out about 10 or 12 and go from there.
Gotcha.
Nothing. I haven't figured out a special leader length, so I just go about 12 foot, and
Yep.
I'll break off a couple times, and then once I broke off a few times, I'm like, all right, that leader's been through it. I'll retie a leader, and you can do it in a minute or two. It don't take long.
Yep. And actually, one more Gary question. You said, skipping. Do you use a different rod when you're going to dock skip all day, or is it pretty much you're using that same?
That I use a 7-1 medium heavy. Just to be specific, I use a 7-1 medium heavy, Legend Elite from St. Croix.
Okay.
It's a spinning rod, 7-1 medium heavy, and man, it's deadly for skipping and wacky. I mean, I use it for a wacky worm too if I want to beef up my wacky worm setup. But so I can skip on. That's what I use. Besides, when we do rig up like a Magnum trick or whatever, I'll do it on a 7.3 medium heavy, same kind of rod. So
Gotcha. All right, so switching over to seasons a little bit, you'd already hinted a little bit that spawn's probably the best season, but let's kind of walk it through the year, starting off now, like in the wintertime when it's cold, it's before pre-spawn even. You still throwing it this time of year?
absolutely, down here a lot. Like I just went the last few days down here, and they're still biting it. So, and it's definitely where you find something grouped up, or now with forward facing, you see the group sitting over there on the bottom, so you just throw your bait over there. But it was a good search. It's always a good search bait too. Throw it out, let it hit bottom, shake it 4 or 5 times, reel it in, move on, But 100% wintertime is really great for it, especially on all these highland lakes, whether it be Hartwell or Smith, any of these that have, a lot of spotted bass like that. I feel like spotted bass love a shaky head. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Like they like to feed on bottom. I mean, you catch bigger ones on it than you do a drop shot 100%. I firmly believe that. So they just, for some reason, they'll follow it to the bottom and eat it. So yeah, I'll use it. Obviously, I'll use it year round, but wintertime through spawn and then summertime brush structure type stuff is where it shines. But the only time I really don't use it a lot is that August, September, 1st October time frame. And now that we have forward facing, we know why. It's because they're not on the bottom or they're not on anything. They're just out swimming around. And that's why you don't get a bunch of bites on anything, and unless you're using forward facing. But when those water temps cool off, they start grouping back up, getting on the bottom. 100%. Wintertime, it's a deadly bait down here to catch big ones, or I mean anywhere's really. When they get on the bottom, for sure.
Yep. And during the spot, like when you won the Lake of the Ozarks, it seemed like on that one you were basically kind of blind bed fishing. I think the water was kind of murky, and you figured they were on bed. Is that kind of the ideal, that the best setup is when they're spawning but you can't see them?
100,000%. That is my favorite time to throw it. I remember that tournament like it was yesterday. I fished for about an hour, cranking and stuff, and I really wasn't getting bit. And I felt a few slapping. And I'm like, I wonder if they're on bed. And I come to a dock, pitched it under the walkway, and it's swimming off. And I'm like, Went to the next dock, one's under the walkway, next dock under the wall. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I really wasn't catching really big ones. Like there wasn't even scorables, but there was just so many, 14 inches. I'm like, man, if a few females come in here, it's going to be decent. And man, my stuff it seemed like it got better as the tournament went on. Like there was just more, like I was going back through the same areas and it was not the same fish. And they were just piling in those pockets up there. And man, it was fun. And I couldn't have asked for a better situation because it's what we do down here. Like, like down here on Smith, like you hear Smith, you think clear water, but like they don't spawn up shallow here. Like they spawn in like 8, 6, 8, right where you can't see. And that was the same way it was at Ozarks. Now I would see a few on the bed, and then I would just pitch a shaky head over and they'd tote it off. But most of the time they were in that 6 foot to where right where you can't see. But like I just love it because instincts like played such a role because I could just look at a bank and be like, there's one on that corner. And I could just pick the troller up, idle over there, throw, and man, he would be there. It was just a dream come true the way it worked out. But yes, that is my absolute favorite way to do it is that spawning time where everybody don't see them down through there, so they really haven't seen a bait, like because nobody really casts it if you can't see them if they're spawning. So, but with all those docks, they have to get right there. That's just what they do. I don't know why, but they'll get under a cable, like under the cable that's above the water, which I don't understand. They do it down here too. How they know that's where they need to be, I'll never understand it. But you could literally fish down a whole bank, not get a bite, get to a cable, skip it to that cable, and one would swim off with it. Like it was just like, then you'd get to the walkway, under the walkway, one would swim off with it. Or if the dock was close enough to the bank where, the corner of the dock was in like 4 or 5 foot, get it to that corner, one swimming off with it. And I'm like, you'd catch a few without a dock, but man, you could just target them so quickly. And that's what I loved about it. And that's the way it is down here. So I knew exactly what to do. And I could just look with my eyes and see a bank and be like, there's where I want to be. And sure enough, it just worked out. But yeah, that's 100% my favorite way to fish a shaky head is when they're spawning and you can't see them, but they should be sitting there. And I did that on like Ozarks. I did it at Table Rock. I mean, any lake that's got that, that 45-degree banks like here at Smith where they'll have to spawn on that 6 or 7 foot stuff, 5 or 6 foot stuff. So, but yeah, that's, man, I get excited just thinking about those conditions. We're going to Beaver this year for MLF and in April, so I feel like I should be able to catch some doing that there too. So as long as they're big enough, that's the plan, anyways.
Yeah, I'm sure you get a couple on it. And then it obviously docks are really good. Is it? And you're talking about how it's kind of like a jig. It's just a finesse jig. You're target fishing with that. Is that what you want to do most of the time? Is have bushes or docks or laydowns, targets to throw, or how much of the time you just going and saying, well, they're on 45-degree banks or they're on bluff ends and stuff or certain type of rock and just going down kind of straight banks?
Yeah, unless they're spawning, I hardly ever just go down a straight bank with it. I mean, unless there's laydowns or a big chunk rock or something but it's like you said, it's target. Like I'm throwing at a big rock, throwing at a laydown, a point, like something different. I mean, just what you would look at a bank and be like, man, there should be a fish on that. And then you throw your spinner bait or crankbait bite, but don't get bit. You're like, dang, there should be one. And then you throw your shaky head up there and one swims off with it. So that's kind of how we've always done it. We just started off with it. We didn't throw everything else before and just stuck with it. And that's kind of why we got so much confidence with it. But yeah, it's always some kind of target, like you said, point, lay down, rock, dock, whatever it may be. Very rare you just get to go down the bank. I mean, you don't get to go down the bank hardly with any bait and catch some, not unless they're spawning. So that's kind of that. It's the same way with any other bait. You just throw a shaky head instead.
Gotcha. And then actually fishing it then, you'd already kind of hinted at the spiral, throwing it out there. I assume you're feeding it a ton of slack because you want the spiral?
Yes. Always want it on a slack line sinking. Absolutely. Yep. And then, that's deeper. Now when we're talking about spawning, I don't think the fall really has much to do with it. I think it's just a bait getting to them, the right presentation, that worm. I mean, for some reason, they just bite a worm. I don't know why they do, but it's just the presentation getting to them. But the deeper stuff is when you want it, like in ditches and stuff. We catch them in here, like in the ditches, or if you see a group of fish on the bottom while you're forward facing, like that's when you want that spiral, slow fall. That's that kind of thing. But like shallow, I mean, it may play a role. I'm not sure, but I'm sure it helps. Like when it's sinking and falling right to them, but it's only sinking 4 or 5 foot. I don't know that makes that big of a deal. But yeah, as far as fishing it, like I throw it out, and then like say I'm fishing a lay down, like you work it through just like you would a jig till you get done filling all the limbs or whatever, and then you just reel in, make another cast, same type of thing. Like a dock, I'll work it out till it gets to the edge of the dock, If nothing gets on it, I'll pick it up and throw it again. Now, if they are spawning and I'm going down just a straight bank, it's more of a, like in my mind, I feel like they should be sitting in, right where the sunlight can get to, but you can't see them with your eyes. That's kind of how I look at it. And like I'll be casting and I won't even throw it all the way to the bank if I know, obviously, if I can't see a bed up there, but like I'll just throw it right to where they should be sitting, shake it 2 or 3 times, reel it up, throw it to the next little spot. Just moving quick with it, not throwing it all the way to the bank, working it back, all that. That would take way too long. So it's just something you kind of figure out, when you're down there, while you're fishing is, hey, if they're sitting right here in 4 foot, I'm just going to throw it to 4 foot every time instead of, fishing the whole bank. It just take forever.
And it's called a shaky head, obviously, but I've had different guys I've fished with. Some are rod tip down and just drag forever. Other ones put it in there and it's like a drop shot or something. They're sitting there actually shaking it. Some people just letting it, I guess if they think it's on a bed, just throw it in and dead stick it. Are you doing kind of a combo of all three, or are you, what's the best retrieve?
Most of the time, I would say almost always I'm doing some kind of shaking, and I say shake the slack is what I call it. And I let it go. Like I throw it out, leave my bell open, let it 100%. You got to let it sink straight down without slack, and without pulling your line tight. So you want to have all the slack it can take, sinking straight down. And the reason I like it to sink straight down, especially if they're spawning, like when it sinks, you want it to go straight down to them. Even you don't want it to be falling back towards you in the boat if you got your line tight, obviously, because you want it to go straight down to where they're at. And like I said, leave it slack while it's sinking. And then when I pick up, I just flip the bell over, get my line almost tight, and I got that bow. You have a bow in your line, and I just call it shaking the slack. And I'll just shake that bow in the line. And in my mind, I want the tail of the bait to be moving, but then not the head of the bait, if that makes sense. You just want it to sit in place and quiver. And I feel like to do that, you just have to shake the slack. And I'm shaking it. Like, I wiggle it. You can see the videos of me fishing it, and I'm shaking it. And then I'll just let it sit for a second, pick up, see if one has it. If one don't have it, just shake it again in spot. And then, like I said, if I'm fishing docks, I'll do that till it gets out of the dock, or lay down. I'll do it through till it gets out of the lay down. And then, if they're on bed, I'll just shake it 3 or 4 times, and I just reel it in, throw it out there, and do it again, and just try to land it. You just got to imagine, like, the best thing I can say for somebody wanting to learn to do it is throw it. Start off when they're spawning. Like, fish it while you think fish are spawning. You're going to get way more bites. You're going to get confidence in it. And that's where you'll throw it, shake it a few times, reel it up. And just imagine in your mind you're landing it in a bed every time. And like when you get on lakes where they're spawning good, there's way more fish. You know this. There's way more fish than we ever thought there was. You may go down a bank and see 2 on bed with your eyes, but there's 20 on bed that you don't see. Like, I 100% believe that a lot of time. So that's how I looked at it on the Ozarks or Table Rock or like Lake Travis out in, I don't know, are you familiar with Lake Travis?
Yeah, that's down by Austin here. Yep.
Yeah, that's my favorite lake. It's just like Smith as far as the banks and wise. And we fished the Bass Pro Tour there in April. I think it was April, and end of April. And they were spawning, and I didn't get to practice. I fished the Open now on Pickwick, and didn't get to practice. But I just showed up, and I think I finished like 15th or something. But if I would have got to practice, I think I could have won that one doing the shaky head thing. I just didn't have enough sweet areas just to pull into and catch them quick. I was having to find them in the tournament, and but man, it was the same thing. I'd pull up, I'd see the bank, and I'm like, oh, that's where they should be. And they were on the corner of the dock. They were either on a big rock or a lay down, but they were spawning. Like, you'd miss one, you'd just give it a second, throw it back over, and he'd pick it up again. So that was an awesome lake too for it. So any of these lakes, like I said, that have that 45-degree water, just a little bit of stain every now and then. Like at Travis, you could get in that stain water and literally catch one every cast. Like, it was every single cast, but there was a lot of non-scorables. But it was phenomenal fishing. I guess one of my favorite lakes just because you get bit, But yeah, like I was saying, if you're just learning to throw it when they're spawning first, and you're going to get bit. You're going to get so much confidence. You're going to learn your setup, like catching them, your hook set, all that time. You're just going to get a ton of bites on it. And you're going to get so much confidence in your equipment. That way, when you go to flip docks or fish laydowns or brush piles. You got the right equipment. You know the hook set. You know the bite, and it'll be the same type of bite. You just feel weight moving off with it. So that's what I tell people: throw it when they're spawning. If you're just learning with it, and you're gonna get so much confidence of landing them, hooking them. Just feeling that bite. Because like I'll take people down here on Smith, and like, man, I didn't feel him bite it, and I'm like, yeah, you're never gonna feel like if you do feel one bite it, you better catch him because it's probably gonna be a good one most of the time. If it ain't, not that Tommy gun type stuff, but like it's just a solid thump. Like you better get him because it's probably a good one. But yeah, you never feel him bite it, hardly never. Like it's just a fun. I call it. You feel that rubber band stretch. That's what it feels like. It's just like a stretch, and that's him. Man, like get him. Like he ain't got pockets. Give him the gas. So yeah, but that's what I tell people down here. I'm like, you're not gonna feel them. You just got to jerk when you feel that weight, and they'll be sitting like my wife. She'll be setting the hook in the trees or whatever as soon as she feels that weight. And I'm like, she's gotten a lot better. It just takes a little bit of time to know that feeling of what feels alive and what's a rock, But it's just, that comes with time. Sorry to ramble there, but that's kind of how I feel like I know what I'm talking about with a shaky head, so I'm not scared to talk about it a little bit.
No, we're here for you to dump all the knowledge. So that's great stuff. And I guess historically, it seemed like a lot of people, they seek out. It's like when you're in ultra clear water and sunny and slick, and it's kind of not a biting day anyway. They try the shaky head, but it's interesting. You're talking about going to kind of seeking out stained water, and then I mean, is muddy though too muddy? Is a case where you don't like it then, or you just go up to maybe a bigger profile or something?
Yeah, if they're spawning, I mean, I don't think it gets too muddy, honestly. But I mean, usually that's what you don't see that very often around where I fish. You just don't see super muddy and spawn. So, but if they're spawning, I'll use it, no matter what. And like I said, I'll beef up, some kind of 5-inch stick bait style. And most of the time, that's just so I can skip it under the walkways or under docks or whatever, behind the laydown, whatever, under bushes. It's just so you can get a good skip on it with that bigger profile, but still have only an 1/8 ounce head. But when it gets real muddy, like springtime, like pre-spawn, I mean, I'd rather throw a crankbait or chatterbait or something. Like I feel like they would still bite a shaky head, and you may get to a spot that looks really good, and you'll have it rigged up and slide it in there for a cast or two, but like I seen Jeff Creep say at one time, he's like, if it's too windy for a shaky head, you can catch them on something else. Like that's when you throw something else. So that's kind of the way I look at it too. Like if you got the conditions for something else, you definitely want to be throwing a chatterbait if you can throw a chatterbait. I ain't gonna sit here and tell you a shaky head's better than a chatterbait because it's not. In March when they're biting. So that's kind of the way I look at it. Like if the conditions ain't right for it, they're biting something else better. That's kind of how I see it.
And when you're scouting lakes, when you first come to them, obviously if you think it's a spawn, maybe you start with it. But even in most of those times, are you starting out with that square bill or a chatter?
Yeah, always starting out. Like if I feel like I would much rather, I love throwing a shaky head, but I would much rather catch them on a chatterbait or a square bill. But if it's spawn time, no, I'll start with it. Like if I feel like they're spawning, like I'll be pitching it around really quick. But like a lot of times, like for some reason in Florida, like if you could ever find a hard spot in Florida, Lord have mercy, they have never seen it. That's how I won that open down there. Like they had never seen a shaky head, I guess, because it was nuts. Like they was catching it while it was falling. Like it was crazy. And but yeah, like if you can get areas where they not used to it, like, and it's definitely like you throw a chatterbait, whatever, like a hard spot, square bill, you pick that shaky head up there, you're definitely gonna get a few more bites, in my opinion. Like it really opened my eyes the first time I'd ever went to Florida, and I got on this edge of this little drop, and it's down there on Lake Toho, and it was like I threw a jerk bait, I threw a chatterbait, different stuff, a big worm, speed worm, and I was looking at my depth finder. I'm like, dang, it's like 10, 12 foot. I'm like, that's got to drop, and you could see the weeds, so you knew it dropped off. And I started throwing that worm up there to the edge of the weeds, a shaky head, and it was just like swimming off every other cast. Like I'm like, oh my god! Like you could tell they had never seen something. Like I don't know, it was crazy. So I got the first 3 or 4 times I went to Florida. I think I got like 15. I think I did like got a check. This is in them opens. I think I got 15th, got like 30th, and then I won one, and all on a shaky head. And I knew like it was crazy. So, but yeah, it was. And then I caught him on it a couple years ago at the mouth of one of those canals down there. in one of our MLF tournaments, like 6 pounders, like on shaky head
Wow.
on some of that stuff. So it's pretty cool. You can use it everywhere you go. The only time I don't use it if it's smallmouth. For some reason, drop shot is king. Drop shot or Ned is just you can't beat it. I've tried it. It's just so much faster and easier, and they'll bite a drop shot. So that's what I tell people. I'm like, don't try to fight it, just throw it, because they bite a drop shot. Smallmouth bite a drop shot for some reason, and so that's what I do up there. But it's the same type of deal though. Same, you look at it the same way. You're just throwing a drop shot, whether it be on docks or spawning or whatever it may be. You just use a drop shot instead of a shaky.
That and since those were going back a couple of years, some of those, since you've seen more of those on live scope, the ones that, have you noticed, like when are they following it down and just kind of going nose down on it for a long time, and you're shaking it and they react, or have you learned anything about how they?
Here they'll follow it, like I was talking about earlier. We was down there a few days ago, and it's spotted bass, and you shine it over there, and they're on the bottom. You see them on bottom, 30, 40 foot in front of the boat, 20 foot down, sometimes 40 foot down. We caught some in 35 and 40, but they'll see it falling and they'll come up. And if there's a bunch of them, one will catch it. Like if there's like 10 of them and they hadn't seen a bait yet that morning, like one of them will catch it. You just go ahead and jerk, like he's got it. You'll see it. Like you'll see your bait stop falling and the fish have it. It's obvious. But like after you catch a few, they'll come up and they'll see it go back down, and you'll shake it. You pick up initially and one don't have it, and you're like, well, they ain't gonna bite it. And then you just keep shaking, and then like want to pick it up, and it'll be a decent one. So it's kind of the deal. You just have to play with it, like with forward facing when they're on bottom like that. I feel like the longer it's down there, and it, like you'll see them still following it along. Like you don't see your bait, you pop it, you'll see your bait rise, and they'll scoot a little closer to it. It's pretty cool to watch. And then all of a sudden, one will pick it up, and it'll be a 2.5 pounder. So it was pretty cool, and we did that a few years ago down there too. So it's definitely pay attention to forward facing with it, and like I've seen people say they've left a bait sitting for a minute and a bass still looking at it, and then he'll finally pick it up. So I guess it's the same kind of thing. I don't know. I ain't built the patience up enough to let it sit there for a minute yet, but they say they do. They do it. I mean, I'm a student of the sport, no doubt. I'm all the time watching videos and fishing, and like I'm always got something I'm trying to watch or learn or whatever. So, but yeah, I see that. I'm definitely gonna have to try it, I guess. But forward facing, it's frustrating because you feel like you could find another one that'll bite like in a minute instead of waiting on that one. But sometimes you don't. You just don't know. But like I feel like, because a guy I was with the other day, he's like, man, you move fast with that forward facing. I'm like, might as well go to the next one. That one ain't gonna bite, and like maybe he would have bit if I'd have gave him a minute, but I don't know. I ain't there yet in my skills, I guess I could say.
Yeah, that gets frustrating. It shows you all the fish you can't catch.
That's a whole different video there. That's a whole different subject.
Yeah.
I don't need to talk about, because I don't know enough about it for sure.
Well, I used to have co-anglers too that they would throw into a dock or somewhere look good, and you would look back and they would open the spool and they'd feed line, and I might be flipping docks or something. You're going down the bank, and all of a sudden they'd set it and say, "Oh, I got him!" And you look, and you're running back with the net to get him, thinking he's right at the boat, and I mean they are 5-6 docks back there. I mean, you talk about dead sticks. So yeah, there's definitely something to it sometimes.
I believe. Well, I mean, you think about it. Mark Davis still catches them doing that, and he's a dead sticking son of a gun, and he hangs on our tour, like he makes the championships. I think he's been in position to win a couple the last 2 years. I love watching him throw a Cinco at them reeds. Like you'd think his lines broke. Like he's just sitting there looking, and then all of a sudden he'll just jerk. Like you didn't even know he was getting a bite. Like I'm like, yeah, it's fun to watch somebody do something, that they're really good at. I've always loved that aspect of it. Of fishing is getting to watch somebody in their element, and it's an art to it. Like you think you're just sitting there with it, and it's a lot more than just sitting there. Like it takes a lot of mind control not to move that bait or whatever. So it's impressive.
Yeah, I was a co-angler. That was going way back to the early 90s, but I was with Gary Klein. We're fishing across the cove, and Gary's just flailing, and Mark would cast that worm out, sit back down the butt seat, cross his leg, just sit there and talk to his co-angler. And it'd be like 2 minutes later, he would stand up and he would set. It was every single cast, but he would just sit there, and Gary was about to have a come apart, just not catching anything, and Mark just another one and laughing. It's crazy.
It is nuts. And you'll watch his line, like he's got his pole, and then all of a sudden he'll just set the hook. It's like they just pick it up and he just sees his line move off. I don't know. it's amazing. I just can't. That's something we get down there. I got to learn more of letting that baby sit in there for a while. Because I mean, you know it. You've seen it too. I know. Like you go down there and you see those live bait fishermen, and they'll pull into a stretch of lily pads, and they literally get a bite every single cast with that minnow if he's in there moving around like that. Their
Yeah.
floater is going under. It may be a 10-incher, it may be a 10-pounder, but something's going to bite it. And I guess he sees it the same way with his Cinco. He just throws it in there, and there's always fish in Florida. Like it looks good, and there's probably fish in there, but there's just certain sections where they're biting artificial baits, you know. But
Yeah.
I've seen it or not thousands, but every time you go down there, you'll see somebody live bait fishing, and they're getting a bite every other cast. And and you might not have had a bite for 3 hours, and so they're there. And I guess that's just a way to look at it is getting them to bite. Eventually, they have to pick it up. I guess I don't know, but I'm not there yet. I can admit my flaws. I can't do it yet.
It's the hardest thing to do with fishing is do nothing. But
Yep.
another casting question on you. Work around docks, around cover and stuff. Are you a big believer in get that thing away from your boat, put away out there, or is it more try to work close, especially around docks when you're working with cables and floats and all that stuff? How close or far are you getting with them?
Yeah. I want to make, obviously, I want to make the farthest cast I can, but you don't want to make, you don't want to hit the dock or make racket, especially shallow. So you just kind of got to figure it out on each dock, I guess you could say. Like if it's a dock that has like a high bottom, you can skip it easy, definitely stay back. But it's just wherever you can make your best cast, farthest cast. And it's the same way with the cable. Like if you're 100 foot away and the cable's 6 inches off the water, you're not going to be able to get it in there. So you got to get, wherever your skill set allows, but just to get it under there, less noise as possible without hitting the dock or the cable or whatever. But yeah, definitely my tip would be stay as far away as you can.
Okay.
With especially the shallow ones. Like if you can skip it farther, definitely I feel like you're going to get a few more bites if you're not up in there on them. But just like I said, just however if your skill set can let you skip it from 100 foot away and not make any racket and get it in there, then absolutely. But if you got to be a little closer, get a little closer. But I feel like your bait not making as much racket is more important than being really close to the dock. Because I've seen it with live scope down here in crystal clear water. Like you can get on that live scope and you can go all the way in the dock, and the fish don't move. Like they may move a little bit, but they're not moving off really fast. But if you throw up there and you hit the dock with your bait, I've seen them just shoot down. So I would say close as you can without hitting the dock, but the farther the better, obviously. I mean, it's a little bit of common sense, I guess, with it.
Yep. Do your casting practice before you get to the lake, right?
yeah, you definitely need to be good with it for sure.
All right. Well, I got one final question for you, but before we get to that, anybody that wants to follow along with you on social media, where you at these days? Where you posting?
Yep. Jesse Wiggins Fishing on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I posted some stuff on YouTube. I got to get better at that, obviously, but I do that. Jesse Wiggins Fishing YouTube. But yeah, social media, a little bit of hunting stuff, a little bit of fishing stuff, a little bit of all of it. So, but yeah, Jesse Wiggins Fishing across everything.
Yeah, if you haven't checked out his Instagram, his most recent Instagram post on deer hunting tips, that's definitely worth going to his go to his page on that on how to get deer. That I really laughed at that. That was pretty good. But last question for you. So the number one mistake you see, I mean, obviously you worked. Sounds like you're coaching your wife through it and seen a lot of guys fish with you. If people aren't catching, if they're missing fish, what's the biggest mistake people make with it usually?
Two things I would say: not having the right equipment. Like I said, a medium heavy rod, whether it be 7, 7.2, 7.1, whatever. Use a medium heavy rod. Use 12-pound fluorocarbon. Whether you use a braid with a leader or just straight fluoro, just use bigger line. And when you feel the bite, give them the gas. Don't be scared. Like I said, it's a jig setup. And then the other thing, as far as fishing it wise, make sure it's on the bottom. I see that a lot, especially with forward facing now. I can scan over and see like the bait's not hitting the bottom, and like my wife, I'll tell her, Haley, it's got to be on the bottom. It's got to be on the bottom. And now you'll get some bites with it not on bottom every now and then, but I would say the key is keeping the bait on the bottom. And with braid now, and that's how I've taught her, is you can see the braid sinking so easy now. So that's what I would say to anybody is definitely use braid as your main line. And you can see your braid moving, and that's what I tell her. I said, when the braid stops moving, It's on the bottom. Then you start shaking again. So keep it on the bottom and have the right beefed up setup for it, and you're definitely gonna get some bites with it.
Well, that's a masterclass in the old shaky head, the old forgotten lure that still catches them. So I'll be excited to tune in to Beaver Lake this year, see if you're stroking them. Hopefully
Yes.
they line up for you. So, well, I appreciate the time today. Really awesome stuff, Jesse. So appreciate all the good info.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me on anytime. I appreciate it. Enjoyed it.